I'm very proud and grateful to present to you an inside view on the conservation of the stained glass cupola in the winter garden of Hotel Van Eetvelde, a wonderful stained glass ensemble built in an elaborate, most exquisite Art Nouveau style. In this presentation, I hope to share with you the artistic excellence of the artwork while guiding you through some parts of the conservation process. This unique stained glass cupola was designed by Victor Horta and executed by master glacier Van Eetvelde. Horta doesn't need much of an introduction, but was one of course of the leading figures of the Art Nouveau style in Brussels, and also Eetvelde was known to be an excellent craftsman. The cupola is the highlight of the center of the house that Horta built between 1895 and 1901 for Baron Edmond van Eetvelde, who was an important Belgian diplomat and belonged to the close circle of King Leopold II. So the house was built to host and impress prominent visitors. The naturally lit winter garden is an impressively enlightened central room between the front and the back section of the house. The floor plan and the overall steel construction of the building was an architectural masterpiece at the time, which is made most visible by the integration of the spectacular stained glass cupola. Horta referred in his memoirs to this house as his most experimental and daring architectural creation. The building was listed in 1976 and included in the UNESCO World Heritage List in 2000. Over the years, the building underwent several restoration campaigns, and its function changed from a private house to the head office of a guest federation. So although it is an iconic Art Nouveau building in Brussels, not many people had visited it. So when it was decided to open the house for the public last year, we were asked to clean and restore the stained glass cupola. But before we can talk about the restoration of the cupola, let's have a look at how the cupola was built. The octagonal winter garden is surrounded by a staircase and hallway that ends in the front room with a balcony overlooking the winter garden that allowed Van Eetvelde to address his important guests standing downstairs. The stained glass located above the winter garden follows the same octagonal structure and consists of a central part and a surrounding area called the crown. The central section is naturally lit by the shaft and the glass roof above it, and it exists of 16+1 very small panels in the middle, who are actually placed in a down crown-shaped frame. 16 large slices of cake-shaped panels in the central cupola that go from the upper center circle bending downwards to the columns. You also have 8 smaller fan-like panels in the corners, who still receive some natural light, but not that much anymore. And then you have the crown, or the F section, that exists of 14 large square-shaped panels and 12 triangle panels, who don't receive much direct natural light. All panels are supported by steel T-bars and some extra flat bars. Both the structure and the stained glass are bent in the most elaborate and refined manner. The crown panels even bend strongly downwards, parallel with the wall on one side and towards the columns on the other side. The ingenious way in which the cupola is constructed is what makes it so impressive, but at the same time what makes it so complex to restore. At the start of the restoration campaign, nobody knew for certain how the panels were made and how they were installed. Apart from that, thorough observation of most of the panels wasn't possible during preliminary research due to limited access. And so many questions concerning their condition remained unanswered. It was clear, though, how dirty they were, so cleaning was absolutely the prior goal. But once stained glass panels are deinstalled, often it is necessary to do more. Also, it is the moment to restore the panels properly. In this project, we had the luxury to work in full confidence and close collaboration with architect and Horta expert Barbara van der Wee, art historian and glass expert of the KIK IRPA Isabelle Lecoq, and an experienced heritage consultant Pierre Bernard. And of course, also thanks to the confidence of the client. Because not every step in the conservation treatment was known before the start of the project. It was kind of an adventure for everybody. The project started with the intention to only deinstall the central panels, who were easily accessible, and to clean and conserve the rest of the panels in situ in a minimalistic way. At the start of the project, and I apologize to Barbara, I didn't know the Turin Declaration of the Preservation of Art Nouveau Architecture. It wasn't yet known to me. So, as in most restorations, the CVMA guidelines, the Corpus Vitriarium guidelines on the conservation of stained glass, were followed. These guidelines are written on the foundation of the Charter of Venice, declaring minimal intervention and the preservation of previous restorations over the improvement of the aesthetics. However, the recurrent floral motifs that often result in very elegant and complex stained glass ensembles are of great decorative value within the architecture. The importance of the aesthetic value of Art Nouveau stained glass challenges the conservator to find the right balance between conservation and restoration. In this project, we were happy to rely on such an expert team with whom we could discuss the conservation methodology in detail. The expert knowledge of the building history, the intentions of the architect, Horta, and the wishes of the first owners assisted in a better understanding of the aesthetic role of the stained glass within the building and was a guidance in the decision-making during conservation. In general, the condition of the LED net seemed solid enough, and the LED net in the crown panels looked very intact. There were no records found of an overall previous restoration campaign, so assuming that the LED could be potentially over 100 years old, we felt uncertain about the strength of the LED net and the solder joints in case of deinstallation, especially because of the big size of the panels. In contrast to the crown panels, the central panels showed evidence of many small repairs. A few panels were re-leaded and 142 infills could be identified, existing of various types of glass. From a purely technical point of view, it wasn't highly necessary to restore these panels. However, these previous interventions heavily destroyed the uniform look of the central cupola, and this, together with an extensive amount of dust and dirt, made the stained glass look dull and dark, losing its former glory. That had a big effect on how the natural light could enter and the space was perceived. And so the objective for this conservation was to restore the grandeur of the winter garden and the overwhelming effect of the stained glass in the room. Such a stained glass cupola is more than just decoration. It is also the ability to bring light into the room and change the space because of its colors. After a successful deinstallation of the central panels, they were assessed in the workshop, and simultaneously the crown panels were assessed in situ, together with some architectural elements. And the following observations could be made. The cleaning tests in situ performed with elongated sticks on a vacuum cleaner and a cell phone on a stick to film the movements made clear that no satisfiable results could be reached, because the opening between the glass and the plasterwork above was hardly 30 centimeters and didn't allow decent access to the backside of the panels. The cleaning tests in the workshop, however, were spectacular, and the dust was removed with a brush and a vacuum cleaner. A wet cleaning with ethanol and water was applied. A thick layer of nicotine came off the interior side of the panels and transformed the glass in a spectacular way from yellowish to opalescent opaque white. The in situ observation of the architectural context proved that there had never been artificial lighting above the crown panels, which was an important thing to know. That was an important question that needed an answer in order to understand how the entire stained glass ensemble must have looked originally, especially because the presence of transmitted light between the central section and the crown section was so extremely different. Also, the plasterwork above panels F1 and F2 in the crown section were heavily damaged and needed to be redone. Therefore, we had to remove these two panels from the frame. The combination of these observations resulted in a decision that if the removal of F1 and F2 were successful and showed minimal risk for further damage to the panels, all F panels would be removed, and successfully The E panels, which we already knew could only be removed after the F panels were gone, would be taken out. And this is exactly what happened. 6 people were needed to take out the crown panels of its frame safely and slide it onto a wooden board so the panels weren't stressed under their own weight. In the end, we removed all panels, including the B and the C panels of the central section. So they could all be cleaned equally in the workshop. And that allowed us to treat the glass breaks in the best possible way, to repair the LED net where necessary, and to reinforce the panels where needed. In the panels of the F, the E, and the C sections, there were hardly any evidence of earlier repairs. So with these panels, a minimalistic approach was the obvious choice, because it was sufficient in every way. Broken glass was edge bonded with UV glue for the large breaks in the panels, because we really needed these cracks to hold while putting back these enormous panels. Araldite was used for the smaller unstable cracks, and for the single but stable cracks, they weren't treated at all. Occasionally, an infill was replaced, but later we come back to the infills. Broken solder joints and edge LEDs were fixed, and broken or missing tie LEDs and bars were replaced or added. The only invasive intervention we did on these panels was creating a custom-made gap in the outside border of the F panels in order to let a central steel bar pass. In all these panels, we found the glass broken and on these spots, probably because it was one of the details that could not have been foreseen when Horta and Eetvelde made these panels. It was so complex, it was even ingenious, but it's possible that they've actually overlooked this tiny detail, so we corrected it. The central panels are a different story, and the choice between minimalistic and more invasive approach had to be made. After careful consideration with the expert team, it was unanimously decided that this was a unique chance to restore the uniform character and splendor of the cupola. Bad infills were to be replaced, but only if we could do better. Unfortunately, none of the glass types are still produced or easily found. For the colored textured glass, we were lucky to find just enough sheets in our and other old stocks of glass. For the white chenille glass, we had to replace over 90 calibers. Of course, only if we could find similar glass. There was no time for producing the glass because we had to perform the entire conservation in only 4 months' time. And a few small tests showed that there was also no time for more testing about slumping opaque glass or painting existing chenille like transparent glass. Fortunately, the combination of this transparent chenille-like Wismach ripple glass and Bulsar white opalescent double-rolled glass came very close to the original cloudy semi-opaque white glass. The next challenge, however, was how to plate these calibers in a sustainable, maintenance-friendly and reversible manner. After considering the various options, we chose to put the textured glass into the LED net and glue the opaque glass on top of it, fitting in between the edges of the LED flanges. In order to avoid dust entering the space in between, we chose to use a Wacker sil gel and to fill the entire space between the plates. This is an experimental choice to combine this type of glue with stained glass. And of course, we will do a yearly follow-up to see if all goes well. The difference in the density of the opacity in the historic glass, as well as in the bullseye glass, was difficult to distinguish in the workshop with artificial light. After a trial installation in situ, we noticed the importance of how similar the opacity had to be for every new infill. So we built up a setup in the workshop to assess the panels in a safe way with natural light. And we had to order twice as much bullseye glass as necessary just to be able to choose the exact pieces that we needed for every single infill. and so to match the opacity of every caliber perfectly. To secure the stability of the panels, while so many pieces had to be replaced, we re-leaded large parts of the panels. However, if the more decorative parts of the panels still contained what was considered possibly original lead, we kept it. The panels that were previously re-leaded in thicker lead than the original one, we re-leaded completely. Again, supported by the argument to restore the aesthetic magnificence of the cupola. In the end, the result was spectacular. The cleaning revealed all the true colors of the cupola and changed the effect in the room immensely. It is now a bright bluish sky, letting maximal sunlight entering the room, emphasizing the open space. And even the crown panels lit up during the day more than they did before. Conservation. In the evening, the reflected light from underneath shows the textures and bright colors of the glass in an equally impressive manner. We know that this colored texture glass was a novelty at the time, and therefore the perfect glass to use for these experimental Art Nouveau stained glass ensembles. But also the striking effect of this glass during day and night in a room with a representative function during day and night makes us wonder if architects and stained glass artists were well aware of that effect and chose these glasses because of that. Let me finish with some conclusions. In this project, we were fortunate to witness the resourcefulness of the genius of Victor Horta and Eetvelde, who were masters in inventing the most complex window frames, including elaborate stained glass panels. In both projects, it was a thrilling adventure to remove the panels from their frames, to discover along the process how experimental making these artworks must have been for the inventors as well. And it was challenging as a conservator to dismantle and restore it. The close collaboration with an expert team and the confidence of the client in this project resulted in decisions that led towards the improvement of the aesthetic outcome of the stained glass, even if that meant choosing a more invasive intervention. The aesthetic and symbolic value of this stained glass ensemble here exceeds the age value of previous restorations. These decisions felt right and even obvious, but still as a conservator, you always try to stay close to the principle of the Charter of Venice and the CVMA guideline. And as such, it felt like a relief to me to read the Declaration of Torino, and especially the following words: where there is a conflict between preservation and age value of the artistic value of an Art Nouveau monument, one should give high priority to the artistic value, but with as much respect of the age value as possible. And I believe that this is exactly what we did in this project. Thank you for your attention.